The billionaire CEO slapped a single father inside a luxury restaurant. Then her bodyguard recognized who he really was. The slap cracked through the restaurant like a gunshot. For one frozen second, every plate, every wine glass, every whispered business conversation inside the Golden Stag fell into silence. A bright red mark bloomed across Daniel Hayes's cheek, just above the old white scar that ran along his jaw. But he did not move. He did not raise a hand. He did not even blink. He simply stood there in his faded flannel shirt, holding his 6-year-old daughter against his chest, while the billionaire CEO in front of him stared back, still breathing hard from the fury that had made her strike him. Celeste Monroe expected him to cower. She expected him to apologize. She expected the tired-looking single father with scuffed boots and a child wearing a jacket covered in butterfly patches to understand his place in the world she believed she owned. But Daniel only looked at her with a stillness so deep that the entire dining room seemed to step backward. Lily's little fingers tightened around his collar. She whispered his name, trembling. Daniel's hand moved gently over her back, slow and steady, the same rhythm he had once used to calm soldiers inside burning vehicles, wounded men beneath foreign skies, and now the only person left on earth who could truly break him. He told her quietly that he had her. Then he looked at Celeste again. His voice was almost gentle when he asked whether she had finished. That was when the first real fear entered Celeste Monroe's eyes, though she did not yet understand why. She did not know the man she had slapped was not a minimum-wage nobody, not a weak father, not a harmless stranger she could humiliate in public. She did not know that for 15 years Daniel Hayes had lived in places the government never admitted existed. She did not know that generals spoke his name carefully. She did not know that men who had survived war because of him still lowered their voices when they called him Sergeant Major. And she did not know that the most dangerous thing about him was not what he could do with his hands. It was what he was choosing not to do with them. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity, grace, and second chances, hit like and subscribe. These stories remind us that quiet strength does not need to shout. Sometimes it simply stands still until the truth makes the whole room silent. Now, back to Daniel Hayes. That evening in Dallas had begun with warm bread, chocolate cake, and one small promise. Daniel had chosen the corner table at the Golden Stag because it gave him a clear view of the entrance, the emergency exit, the bar, and the hallway leading toward the restrooms and kitchen. Old habits did not retire just because a man did. He sat with his back near the wall, shoulders relaxed enough for ordinary people not to notice, eyes moving just enough for trained people to understand that he had never completely left the war. To everyone else, he looked like any rugged single father in his early 40s. Weathered face, faded flannel, worn denim, leather boots that had seen rain, dirt, and too many years. But a soldier would have seen more. The way his hands rested lightly near the edge of the table, the faint scar near his jaw, the measured breathing, the calm that was not laziness, but readiness. Across from him, Lily Hayes was dismantling a slice of chocolate cake with the seriousness of a tiny demolition expert. She wore a denim jacket covered in iron-on butterflies, pink sneakers, and mismatched socks because Daniel had learned long ago to choose his battles carefully. At 6 years old, Lily was bright, stubborn, and full of life in the way children sometimes become after life has already taken too much from them. Her mother, Claire, had died when Lily was 3 after a 2-year fight with leukemia that emptied Daniel's savings, his sleep, and the part of him that had once believed surviving combat meant he understood pain. He had been Delta Force then, a Tier 1 operator, the kind of man sent into rooms where failure made headlines no one would ever read. He had led men through gunfire, sandstorms, hostage rescues, and black operations that existed only inside redacted files. But no battlefield had prepared him for sitting beside Claire's hospital bed while she grew smaller beneath white sheets and whispered one final request. "Promise me she will still laugh." So Daniel retired. He handed in his papers. He packed away medals Lily had never seen. He moved to Texas and built a quiet life around school pickups, park afternoons, grocery lists, bedtime stories, and the sacred work of keeping one little girl's world soft. That evening, Lily had asked to eat inside the beautiful restaurant with the golden lights. Daniel had said yes because she had gone a full week without a nightmare. She had asked for the large slice of chocolate cake with the sugar stars on top. Daniel had said yes because fathers sometimes celebrate victories no one else can see. Lily wanted to know whether they could go to the park after dinner. Daniel smiled. When Daniel smiled, the hard lines of his face briefly remembered who he had been before war taught him to watch doors. He told her they could go only if she finished the cake without wearing half of it. Lily looked down at the chocolate already covering one sleeve. It was too late. Daniel told her they would have to negotiate. She giggled. That sound did something to him that no metal ever had. It made the room worth enduring. The Golden Stag was crowded with technology founders, lobbyists, influencers, investors, and executives speaking softly about money but loudly enough to be admired. Silverware touched porcelain. Wine was poured. The kitchen doors opened and closed. Expensive perfume mixed with the smell of roasted meat, butter, bread, and spices. It was the kind of place Daniel disliked. Too many entrances, too many phones, too many people who assumed price and value were the same thing. But Lily loved the ceiling lights, the white tablecloths, and the small chocolate stars on her cake. So Daniel came. Love often means entering rooms you would rather avoid because someone small feels happy there. Then Celeste Monroe walked in. She did not enter like a customer. She arrived like a hostile takeover. A white designer suit, black sunglasses, $4,000 heels clicking against polished wood, two assistants orbiting her with tablets and fear in their faces. Behind her moved Marcus Reed, her bodyguard, a massive man in a tailored black suit whose eyes swept the room with military familiarity. Celeste was 42, founder and CEO of Monroe Aerospace, a billion-dollar defense and aviation empire with contracts involving satellites, military navigation, private aircraft, surveillance systems, and classified supply chains. Business magazines called her visionary. Former employees called her merciless. Competitors called her expensive trouble. She called herself unstoppable. That evening, she was in Dallas to finalize a classified Department of Defense contract worth more than the annual budget of some small countries. A delay in the legal review had put her in the kind of mood that made everyone around her speak in short sentences. She pushed through the waiting area while speaking sharply into her phone. She did not care what legal had said. If the company's senior counsel refused to approve the language before midnight, she wanted him replaced. She was not going to lose $3 billion because one lawyer had suddenly developed a conscience. A young man waiting near the host stand quietly told her that the line began behind him. Celeste lowered the phone just enough to look at him over her sunglasses. She informed him that she earned more money while blinking than he would make in his entire life. Then she told him not to confuse proximity with relevance. The young man flushed and stepped back. A few diners stared. Most looked down. Wealth has a way of making cowardice feel like manners, Daniel noticed. But he said nothing. He had learned long ago that every arrogant person in a room was not necessarily his assignment. His assignment was Lily, his dinner, his promise of the park. Lily, meanwhile, had decided she wanted to carry her empty dessert plate toward a small service stand because she wanted to help the waiter. Daniel tracked her movement without thinking. Lily toward the service station. 12 feet, mostly clear path. Celeste's route intersecting. Speed fast. Eyes on phone. Collision risk immediate. Daniel's body reacted before his mind finished the calculation. He called Lily's name and told her to stop. His voice cut through the restaurant, low and commanding. Lily froze halfway, but Celeste turned around the edge of the bar at the same instant, still looking at her phone, and slammed directly into her. The ceramic plate shattered. A glass of dark berry sauce toppled from a nearby tray. Red liquid splashed across the floor and dotted Celeste's pristine white shoes. Lily fell backward hard, landing on the polished floor with a gasp that turned every cell in Daniel's body cold. The restaurant stopped. Even the pianist near the bar seemed to strike the keys more softly. Lily sat stunned among broken ceramic and red splashes, her eyes wide and her lower lip trembling. Celeste looked down, not at the child first, at her shoes. Her face changed, not into concern, into fury. She called Lily a disgusting little brat. Lily's eyes filled with tears. She apologized. Celeste demanded to know whether the child understood how much the shoes cost. She raised her voice loudly enough for diners across the room to hear. She asked where Lily's parent was. She asked what kind of person allowed a child to wander around like an animal. Then she reached down as if to grab Lily by the arm. She never touched her. Daniel was there. No one saw him cross the distance. One moment he was beside the table. The next, he stood between Celeste and his daughter, a wall of flannel, scar tissue, and silent authority. He did not shove Celeste. He did not shout. He simply placed his body where danger had no permission to pass. He told her to step back. Celeste moved half a step away, startled by the suddenness of him. For one fraction of a second, some old animal instinct warned her that she was standing too close to something she did not understand. But pride killed that instinct quickly. She looked Daniel over. Worn shirt, old boots, inexpensive watch, tired face. Her calculation was immediate and wrong, poor, powerless, dismissible. Daniel crouched without taking his eyes from her and lifted Lily gently into his arms. Lily buried her face in his shoulder and cried quietly, embarrassed and shaken. His hand covered the back of her head. He assured her that she was safe. Then he stood and faced Celeste. He explained that she had walked into Lily because she was looking at her phone. He told her to lower her voice. He told her to apologize to his daughter. Then he told her to walk away. Celeste laughed. It was loud and brittle. She repeated the idea that she should apologize to the child. Daniel said yes. Celeste stared at the red spots on her shoes. She called Lily a feral little creature and complained that the child had ruined a $4,000 pair of shoes. Daniel's eyes did not change. He said the shoes could be cleaned. Children remembered. The sentence landed harder than he expected. A woman near the bar looked down. A waiter stopped polishing a glass. The young man Celeste had insulted near the entrance raised his phone slightly. He was recording now. Celeste saw the shift in the room. She saw that people were watching her not with admiration, but judgment. She hated it. She leaned closer and told Daniel exactly who she was. Celeste Monroe, a woman who owned companies, a woman who bought and sold businesses before breakfast, a woman who was in Dallas to sign a defense contract worth enough to pay for Daniel's miserable life 10,000 times over. She said she would not stand there and be lectured by a low-rent cowboy with a badly dressed child. Lily flinched. She shrank deeper into Daniel's neck. Daniel's breathing changed. Slower. Quieter. He told Celeste not to speak about his daughter again. Celeste stepped closer. She wanted to know what would happen if she did. The room tightened. Daniel did not look angry. That was what made it worse. Angry men warn you. Calm men have already made decisions. He told her softly that she would regret it. Celeste's face flushed with humiliation. She threatened to call Child Protective Services. She said she would tell them Daniel had threatened her. She claimed she could have Lily taken from him before dessert was served. People like him always had something to hide, she said. That was the first moment Daniel considered ending the confrontation in a way the room would never forget. Not because Celeste had insulted him. That meant nothing. Men had tried to break Daniel in languages Celeste could not pronounce, but she had threatened Lily, his daughter, Claire's last light in this world, the promise he had made over a hospital bed. Daniel's heart rate slowed, his focus narrowed. Celeste became less a person and more a problem requiring containment. He told her the conversation was finished. He told her to leave. But Celeste Monroe had lived too long without consequences. Power had trained her to believe every boundary was an insult. Rage made her reckless. She drew back her hand and slapped him across the face with everything she had. The sound froze the restaurant. A fork slipped from someone's hand and struck a plate. A diner gasped. Someone whispered that they could not believe what they had seen. Celeste's palm stung. Daniel's cheek reddened. Lily whimpered against his collar. Daniel did nothing. That stillness broke something in the room. Everyone had expected violence, or at least shouting, but Daniel simply stood there, absorbing the insult like a mountain absorbing weather. Celeste, still breathing hard, stared at him. For the first time, she noticed that he had barely moved from the impact. She noticed the scar near his jaw. She noticed the cold absence of fear in his eyes. Daniel asked whether she had finished. No drama, no raised voice, no open threat. Just a question that sounded like the last opportunity a person received before a door closed forever. Then the main doors opened hard. Marcus Reed pushed through the gathering diners, one hand already moving toward the inside of his jacket, his huge frame forcing people aside. He told Celeste to step back. Then he ordered Daniel to put the child down and move away before he was put on the floor. Daniel did not move. Marcus took 2 steps closer. Then he saw the scar, then the eyes, then the faded outline of a grim Reaper tattoo visible near Daniel's right forearm where his sleeve had shifted while holding Lily. Marcus stopped so suddenly that his polished shoes squeaked against the floor. The blood left his face. His hand moved away from his jacket. For 8 years, Marcus Reed had carried a memory from Afghanistan that still woke him some nights covered in sweat. Kunar Province, a valley of rock and dust, a ranger team pinned down for 14 hours, low on ammunition, no water, 2 men bleeding out, radio calls breaking under static. Marcus had been younger then, loud, strong, certain that fear was something weaker men admitted. By the 13th hour, he had learned better. They were waiting to die when 4 shadows moved down the ridge. No headlights, no announcement, no hesitation. Delta. They entered the fight like judgment. 20 minutes later, the valley was quiet except for wounded men breathing. The man who dragged Marcus's medic through open fire, taking 2 rounds against his body armor without slowing, had turned once beneath moonlight, a scar along the jaw, a grim Reaper tattoo, eyes like winter. Command Sergeant Major Daniel Hayes, the ghost of Kandahar, a man whose name was spoken inside special operations circles with a mixture of gratitude, awe, and fear. Now Marcus stood 4 feet from him inside a restaurant, having just threatened to put him on the floor. Marcus slowly raised both hands, palms open. His voice cracked as he called him Sergeant Major and apologized. He had not known it was him. The restaurant became so silent that a spoon settling against a plate sounded enormous. Celeste stared at her bodyguard. She demanded to know what he was doing. Marcus did not look at her. His eyes remained on Daniel. He told Celeste she needed to apologize immediately. Then they needed to leave. Celeste nearly screamed the word apologize. She accused Marcus of losing his mind. Daniel had threatened her. Marcus finally looked at his employer. The expression on his face made her move backward. It was not fear of losing his job. It was pity. He told her that Daniel had not threatened her child. She had threatened his. Then she had struck him in public. Celeste reminded Marcus that he worked for her. Marcus told her that he no longer did. He removed his earpiece. He dropped it onto the floor. Then he resigned. Celeste's mouth opened. No sound came. Marcus turned toward Daniel again and apologized for his approach. He said he had failed to recognize him. Daniel answered that Marcus had been doing his job. Marcus swallowed. He said no. He had been doing hers. The sentence crossed the restaurant like a blade. Phones were raised now. People were recording not merely an argument, but a reversal. The billionaire in white was losing control of the man paid to enforce her will. Celeste looked around and realized the room was no longer afraid of her. People were watching, judging, waiting. Her ego panicked before her mind did. She called the entire situation absurd. She said she did not care what soldier fantasy Daniel and Marcus shared. She reminded everyone that she was Celeste Monroe. She was in the city to sign a $3 billion defense agreement with the United States government. Senators returned her calls. Generals knew her name. She was not going to be humiliated by a washed-up veteran and a cowardly former bodyguard. Daniel shifted Lily slightly in his arms. He told Celeste to take her victory and leave. Celeste laughed wildly. She wanted to know what victory he was talking about. She warned that she would call General Bennett immediately. He oversaw special operations acquisitions. She claimed he would send police to drag Daniel from the restaurant. By dinner's end, she said, Lily would be sitting in a government office while officials decided whether a violent man deserved to raise her. Marcus warned Celeste not to make the call. She was already dialing. She placed the phone on speaker and held it up like a weapon. It rang twice. A deep, irritated voice answered. General Thomas Bennett wanted to know whether the call concerned the final contract documents. Celeste's voice changed instantly. The fury disappeared behind a polished corporate tone. She apologized for interrupting. Then she claimed she had been assaulted inside a restaurant. Some unstable local man had threatened her after his child destroyed her property. Her bodyguard refused to intervene because he apparently knew the man. She needed immediate assistance. There was a pause. General Bennett told her to contact local law enforcement. He was in a briefing. Celeste said Marcus had called the man Sergeant Major. Apparently Daniel had a scar and a grim Reaper tattoo. Marcus was behaving as though he had seen the devil. The phone line became silent, not quiet. Silent. Celeste's expression changed. She said the general's name. When his voice returned, the irritation was gone. In its place was caution. He asked her to describe the man again. Celeste repeated the description: flannel shirt, scar on his jaw, tattoo, holding a crying little girl. Another silence. Then General Bennett ordered her to place the phone near Daniel. Celeste did not understand. The general repeated the order more sharply. She obeyed. She held the phone toward Daniel. He did not take it. He leaned slightly toward the speaker. Then he said General Bennett's name and identified himself. Daniel Hayes. On the other end of the line, inside the Pentagon, General Thomas Bennett closed his eyes and lowered his head into one hand. He recognized the voice. Every senior officer connected to special operations recognized it. Daniel Hayes had recovered pilots from impossible valleys. He had brought hostages home from places aircraft could not officially enter. He had saved men whose stars now rested on their shoulders. Bennett owed him more than respect. He owed him lives. The general said Daniel's name. Everyone in the restaurant heard the reverence contained inside that single word. He said it had been a long time. Then he asked how Lily was doing. Celeste's face went pale. The phone trembled in her hand. Daniel rubbed Lily's back. He explained that she had been having a good evening until Bennett's contractor walked into her, knocked her to the floor, shouted in her face, threatened to have her taken from her father, and slapped him after he asked her to apologize. The silence that followed felt endless. General Bennett's voice returned, cold. He asked whether Celeste had actually struck Daniel. Daniel confirmed that she had. Celeste interrupted in panic. She insisted Daniel had intimidated her. He had acted aggressively. His child had ruined. The general ordered her to stop speaking. The force in his voice made Celeste flinch. He told her she was standing in front of a man who had given more to the country than her entire boardroom could understand if he briefed them for a week. The fact that Daniel had been struck and Celeste remained standing was not evidence of her power. It was evidence of his restraint. Celeste's lips parted. She mentioned the contract. General Bennett told her there was no contract. The words landed cleanly. Effective immediately, Monroe Aerospace was suspended from all Department of Defense acquisition discussions pending review. Celeste staggered as though he had struck her back. She said he could not do that. He informed her that he could, and had. She threatened that the board would sue. General Bennett said her board would be too busy answering questions from federal auditors. If her judgment allowed her to assault a decorated veteran while threatening his child in a public restaurant, the government had reason to question her judgment regarding classified aerospace systems. He told her never to call again unless legal counsel was present. His voice softened only when he addressed Daniel. He apologized. He asked Daniel to give Lily his best. Daniel told him to take care of himself. The call ended. Celeste stood in the center of the restaurant with the phone still raised. Color had drained from her face. In less than 2 minutes, the foundation of her empire had cracked in front of waiters, investors, tourists, business leaders, students, and one little girl with tear-streaked cheeks. The room was silent again, but this silence was different. It was no longer shock. It was consequence. A slow, moral stillness, the kind that fills a room when arrogance finally meets the wall it always believed was a door. Then came the police lights. Red and blue flashed across the restaurant windows. 2 Dallas police officers entered. Their hands stayed near their belts as their eyes moved across the room. The older officer, Miller, saw the broken plate, the spilled sauce, the diners holding up phones, the billionaire shaking with rage, and the father holding a child with a visible handprint on his cheek. The officers had received a report about a disturbance. Celeste rushed toward them as though rescue had arrived wearing a uniform. She demanded that they arrest Daniel. She claimed he had threatened her. She said he had assaulted her. His child had attacked her. Even her own bodyguard had lost his mind. Officer Miller looked at Daniel, then Lily, then the mark on Daniel's face. Before Daniel answered, the young man Celeste had insulted near the entrance stood up. His voice shook, but he remained standing. He said Celeste was lying. Celeste turned on him. He held up his phone. He had recorded the entire encounter. She had cut in front of people, insulted strangers, walked into the little girl, shouted at her, threatened the father, then slapped him. He had all of it. A woman near another table stood. She had recorded it too. Someone from the bar had another angle. A man at the rear said the child had done nothing. For the first time that evening, Celeste Monroe had no room to rewrite reality. Officer Miller sighed with the exhausted expression of a man who had seen too many powerful people expect laws to bend around their shoes. He told Celeste to turn around and place her hands behind her back. Celeste refused. She demanded to know whether he understood who she was. The officer said he understood that she was under arrest for assault. Celeste warned that she would have his badge. He told her she could discuss that at the station. The handcuffs closed around her wrists. That sound changed the room more than the general's phone call. The call had wounded her empire. The cuffs touched her body. Celeste began shouting. All control disappeared. She threatened lawsuits, careers, city officials, governors, judges. No one moved to help her. Marcus stood to one side, his expression grim. The waiters watched. The diners recorded. Daniel turned Lily slightly so she would not see the worst of it. When the officers led Celeste toward the door, she looked back once. Hatred and fear tangled inside her expression. Daniel returned neither. He did not gloat. He did not smile. Revenge was not what had brought him across the dining room. Love had. That was all. As the doors closed behind Celeste, the sounds of the restaurant did not immediately return. People seemed unsure what sound belonged after something like that. A waiter approached with shaking hands. He apologized. He offered to replace Lily's dessert and clean Daniel's jacket. Daniel said it was all right. The waiter surprised himself by saying it was not. Daniel looked at him, then nodded. No, it was not. Lily raised her head from Daniel's shoulder. Her eyes were red. She told him she had dropped the plate. That nearly broke him. Not the slap, not the threat, not the memories awakened by Marcus recognizing him. That small apology from a child who believed broken ceramic mattered more than her own fear. Daniel kissed her forehead. He told her plates could be replaced. She said Celeste had been angry. Daniel agreed. Lily asked whether the anger had been because of her. Daniel's voice softened into something the entire restaurant could feel. No. Some people carried storms inside them and blamed whoever got wet. Lily thought about that. Then she asked whether they could still go to the park. A small, astonished laugh moved through the dining room. Daniel smiled. They could still go. Lily asked about ice cream. Daniel told her she was negotiating like a professional. She wanted sprinkles. All the sprinkles, Daniel promised. Marcus stepped closer, slowly, respectfully. He addressed Daniel by his old title. Daniel used his name. Marcus quietly mentioned Kunar. He reminded Daniel of Martinez, the medic Daniel had carried out. Martinez had 3 children now. Daniel's eyes softened slightly. He said that was good. Marcus said Martinez still talked about Daniel every year on the anniversary. Daniel looked away. The past was a country he did not visit with tourists. He told Marcus to take care of himself. Marcus understood the dismissal. Then he looked at Lily. He told her that her father was a good man. Lily rested her cheek against Daniel's shoulder. She said she already knew. That answer made the restaurant quiet again, but gently this time. Daniel carried Lily between the tables. As he neared the entrance, the young man who had recorded the encounter stepped forward awkwardly. He apologized for not speaking earlier. Daniel paused. He told the young man that he had spoken when it mattered. The young man nodded, ashamed and relieved at once. Outside, the Dallas evening spread warm light across the pavement after the cold violence of the restaurant. Daniel stepped into it with Lily in his arms. Behind him remained the broken plate, the spilled sauce, the phones, the whispers, and an empire beginning to shake. He did not look back. But consequences do not end when a man walks away from them. By midnight, the video had spread across social media. The first headlines used the simple language of outrage. Billionaire CEO slaps single father in Dallas restaurant. Then military veterans began identifying Daniel. Not with classified details, not with stories that could not be told, but with enough reverence to change the tone of the conversation. Former Ranger recognizes Delta legend. Retired operator remains calm as CEO threatens child. Defense contractor loses Pentagon deal after public assault. By morning, Monroe Aerospace stock had fallen far enough to trigger emergency meetings. Board members who had tolerated Celeste's cruelty while it produced profit suddenly discovered moral concern when it threatened market value. Federal auditors announced a review. The Department of Defense confirmed that all pending Monroe acquisition discussions had been suspended. Celeste's attorneys released a statement describing the incident as a stressful misunderstanding. The internet replayed the slap 10 million times. No one misunderstood anything. Daniel learned most of this from Marcus. Marcus called once, not to gossip, to warn him that journalists were gathering near the restaurant and searching public records. Daniel's first instinct was to disappear. Old training, protect the perimeter, control exposure, keep Lily away from cameras. But that night, while Lily drew butterflies at their small kitchen table, Daniel stood by the sink washing dishes and realized something heavier than combat. Lily had watched a powerful adult hurt someone and lie about it. She had also watched strangers stand up, a bodyguard tell the truth, a general defend honor. Her father refused violence when violence would have been easy. That lesson mattered. Not the headlines, not the contracts. The lesson. Lily asked whether Celeste was a bad person. Daniel dried his hands slowly. Claire would have known what to say. Claire had been better with soft truths. Daniel had spent too many years inside hard ones. He told Lily that Celeste had done a bad thing. Lily frowned. She asked again whether that made her bad. Daniel sat across from her. He said he did not know. Sometimes people built lives in which no one told them no. Then the first time someone did, something ugly came out. Lily colored one butterfly wing purple. She wanted to know whether Celeste was sorry. Daniel thought of the woman's face as the handcuffs closed. He had seen fear, rage, humiliation, not sorrow, not yet. He told Lily that he hoped Celeste would become sorry. That was different. Lily accepted the distinction with the quiet seriousness children often give to things adults make complicated. She mentioned that Daniel had not hit Celeste back. He agreed. Lily asked whether he had been scared. Daniel smiled faintly. Not of her. Then she wanted to know why he had not hit her. Daniel looked at his hands. Hands trained to break. Hands now used for lunch boxes, braiding hair, washing dishes, and holding a child steady after a cruel world knocked her down. He explained that being strong did not mean doing everything a person was capable of doing. Sometimes strength meant choosing what not to do. Lily considered that. She compared it to not eating all the sprinkles at once. Daniel laughed. Exactly like that. Lily smiled. The day became survivable. 3 days later, Daniel received a letter. Not an email, not a statement through lawyers. A handwritten letter on thick cream paper delivered by courier and left on his porch. Daniel nearly threw it away when he saw the sender's name, Celeste Monroe. But Lily was at school. The house was quiet. Some part of him believed that refusing to open the letter would give it more power than reading it. So Daniel sat at the kitchen table and unfolded it. The letter was not elegant, not polished, not written by a communications team. There were crossed-out sentences, places where the pen had pressed too hard. Celeste wrote that she had spent 2 nights watching the restaurant video without sound because she could not bear to hear her own voice. She wrote that she had built Monroe Aerospace after her father told her no woman could lead a defense company. Somewhere along the way, she had mistaken cruelty for strength because cruelty produced results faster. She said none of that excused what she had done. She did not ask Daniel to defend her. She did not ask him to withdraw the charges. She did not ask to meet Lily. Near the end, she wrote one sentence that made Daniel stop. She had watched Lily apologize for a plate even though Celeste had broken something inside her. And in that moment, Celeste understood she had become someone children feared. Daniel folded the letter. He remained at the kitchen table for a long time. A week later, the courtroom was full. Reporters filled the back rows. Veterans stood quietly along one wall. No one had invited them. No one had organized them. They were simply present. Marcus sat 2 rows behind Daniel. Celeste entered without the white suit, without sunglasses, without assistants. She wore a simple dark dress and looked smaller than she had inside the restaurant. The judge reviewed the assault charge, the public disturbance, and the video evidence. Celeste's lawyer stood, polished and prepared to soften every edge. Celeste touched his sleeve, then shook her head. She stood. The courtroom quieted. Her voice was unsteady, but clear. She did not contest the facts. She had struck Daniel. She had threatened him. She had frightened Lily. She had lied to the police. No context made that acceptable. Her attorney closed his eyes. Cameras clicked. The judge leaned forward. He asked whether Celeste understood the consequences of that statement. She said yes. Then she turned slightly toward Daniel. Her eyes did not ask for rescue. That mattered. She apologized. Not because she had lost a contract. Not because she had been arrested. Because Lily had been hurt. Because she had made the child believe, even for one moment, that she had done something wrong merely by existing in Celeste's path. Daniel said nothing. The courtroom remained silent. Celeste admitted she could not undo it. She could only name it. The judge ordered community service, anger management counseling, a public apology, and restitution to the restaurant. The assault conviction remained on her record. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Daniel ignored them. Celeste did too. As Daniel reached the steps, Celeste called his old title. He stopped. At first he did not turn. Celeste told him she did not deserve forgiveness. Daniel turned then. He said no one deserved it. Her eyes filled. But she remained standing. She asked whether Lily would be all right. Daniel looked toward the street where Lily waited with Marcus's wife, eating a granola bar and swinging her legs. Lily had questions. Celeste nodded. Children should not have to. Daniel agreed. They should not. Celeste took a breath. She had resigned that morning. From Monroe Aerospace. The board would have removed her anyway. But she wanted to sign the resignation herself. For one moment, the woman who had once claimed she owned people stood on the courthouse steps with no one left to command. Daniel asked what she would do next. Celeste looked down. She said she needed to learn how not to be obeyed. It was the first honest thing she had said to him that did not sound prepared. Daniel nodded once. Not forgiveness, not friendship, acknowledgement. Sometimes that is the first mercy truth allows. Months later, people still told the story as though it were about instant karma. They liked the slap, the bodyguard freezing, the general's phone call, the billionaire in handcuffs. Those details were easy to repeat. They had shape. They had drama. They gave strangers the satisfying rhythm of pride meeting consequence. But Daniel never told it that way. When Lily asked about that evening, he spoke about the park afterward, the ice cream with too many sprinkles. The young man in the restaurant who had stood up when telling the truth still felt frightening. Marcus visited once with Martinez, the medic Daniel had saved years earlier. Martinez now walked with a cane and carried photographs of his 3 children. Lily made both veterans sit on the living room floor and judge a butterfly drawing competition. Daniel watched 2 men who had survived war laughing with his daughter beneath paper butterflies taped to the wall. He thought again of Claire's last request. Promise me she will still laugh. She did. Not every day, not without shadows, but she laughed. As for Celeste, she vanished from headlines after donating much of her severance to veteran family services and programs supporting children who had experienced trauma. Some people said it was image repair. Perhaps part of it was. People rarely become pure overnight. Grace is not a magic trick. 6 months after the restaurant incident, Daniel received a small package without a return address. Inside was a ceramic dessert plate painted with blue butterflies. It had clearly been selected by someone who had spent a long time deciding whether sending it was appropriate. There was no long letter, only a small card with 7 words. Plates can be replaced, childhood cannot. Daniel showed it to Lily. She traced one painted butterfly with her finger. She asked whether it came from the storm lady. Daniel nodded. Lily thought for a long time. Then she asked whether they could keep it. Daniel told her they could if she wanted. Lily agreed. But she did not want a chocolate cake served on it. Daniel smiled. Fair enough. Children understand boundaries better than billionaires sometimes. Years later, the Golden Stag hung a small framed photograph near the corner table. Not of Celeste, not of the video, not of the scandal. It was a simple photograph the owner had asked permission to take months after everything settled. Daniel and Lily sat at the same table. Her butterfly jacket had been replaced by a newer one already becoming too small. Daniel held a glass of water. Lily held a slice of chocolate cake. Safe. Beneath the picture was a small brass plaque. Quiet strength sat here. Daniel hated the plaque. Lily loved it. So it remained. If anyone asked Daniel what that evening had taught him, he would not say it taught him that powerful people could fall. He already knew that. He would not say it taught him that reputations concealed truth. War had taught him that years earlier. He would say it taught him something simpler and harder. Restraint was not weakness. Dignity was not silence. Protecting a child did not always mean destroying the person who hurt her, even when you could. Sometimes it meant standing still long enough for truth to arrive. Sometimes it meant allowing the room to see clearly. Sometimes the strongest hand was the one you did not raise. Daniel still took Lily to the park. She grew older, less interested in sprinkles, more interested in soccer, astronomy, and asking questions that made him miss Claire with an ache so clean it almost felt holy. Sometimes people recognized him. They thanked him. They called him a hero. He accepted politely and moved on. Hero was a word strangers used when they did not know the full cost. Lily knew more of that cost than most. She knew her father woke early and checked windows. She knew he kept her mother's photograph on the dresser. She knew his hands sometimes trembled when fireworks exploded. She also knew that when the world became loud, he became quiet. That was the thing she would carry, not the slap, not the recording, not the billionaire who fell. She would carry the memory of being held by a father who could have become a storm, but chose instead to become shelter. And that, in the end, was the real story. Every one of us will eventually face a moment when we are struck, insulted, threatened, or misunderstood. Maybe not inside a restaurant, maybe not in front of cameras, but somewhere, someday, life will raise its hand and test what we are made of. In that moment, power will whisper that restraint is humiliation. Pride will demand an audience. Anger will offer itself as proof that we matter. But quiet strength knows better. Quiet strength does not ask only what it can do. It asks what it should choose not to do. Daniel Hayes could have torn the room apart. Instead, he held his daughter. And because he held himself, truth had enough space to stand up. That is the lesson. Not that villains are punished, not that heroes are recognized, but that the strongest people in the room are often the ones who refuse to allow pain to decide who they become. So before you leave, tell me this. Have you ever seen someone remain calm when they had every right to explode? Have you ever watched quiet strength change a room more powerfully than anger ever could? Share your story in the comments. Someone may need to hear it today. And if this story reminded you of someone strong, gentle, or someone who protected without destroying, send it to them. Let them know their restraint mattered. Let them know the world saw it. And if you believe stories like this still matter, stories about dignity, fatherhood, grace, and the courage to choose restraint when rage would be easier, then subscribe. There are more stories waiting. Some of them may help us remember who we want to become when life hits hard. Life often places us in moments when patience, love, and quiet courage are tested. How we respond shapes not only our character, it shapes the example we leave for those who look up to us. Take a moment today and ask yourself one question. When life tests you, will you choose reaction or restraint? Share your thoughts below about a moment when quiet strength made all the difference. And if this story inspired you, subscribe for more powerful stories about integrity, compassion, courage, and the choices that reveal who we truly are.